Gibb and family has lived in the Green River Valley for, he has a mountain named after his family. So you know how long the Gibbons have lived in Green River Valley. Theron's an 8th generation farmer. He's been a member of the Agricultural Advisory Committee in this county, a member of the Soil and Water Conservation. He's been a teacher and instructor in the ways that he's lived his life and the way he's grown food. This gentleman has won more blue ribbons than probably any other farmer in this region. I think he usually brings back 10 or 15 blue ribbons. I think they've had to, whoever makes these blue ribbons have had to go in overproduction during the state fair every year. And he has stories of the 40-pound turnips and the beets that couldn't be carried, and the numbers of people that could be fed with this food. And what's amazing about this is that most of this doesn't come from a permaculture book somewhere. It doesn't come from some library. It's not from Google. It's from experience, trial and error, and the challenges of growing food in this particular climate. So, without further ado, Theron David.
Thank you, David. Life's a lot of what that you make of it. And you see so many young people today, they got so many different ways, they don't really know what life's all about. They want to try this and they want to try that. But in this about children and whatnot in agriculture, you don't plant seed and expect somebody else to take care of them, and neither do you raise a child or bring a child into the world and expect somebody else to take care of it and raise it. You acquire responsibility that it's up to you to live up to it. And I can look back and say, my parents gave me the example of what that was all about, because I got one brother that's older than I am, but I also have 4 sisters and 8 brothers younger. There are 14 of us. But Daddy always worked odd jobs and whatnot, worked at Camp Greystone, drove a school bus and just different things. But he always encourages kids to be up and be doing something other. And he got to have a fit if he come in and saw you watching TV. He said, don't waste your time watching something you ain't never going to do. He said, get up and go to work. And he tried to always keep us busy and whatnot. And but our family as a whole, it's been here since land grants to Matthew Mabin in 1778. He got a land grant of 1,200 acres from the Queen of England, but he also got other land grants over the years, and a lot of this land it's all still in the area, but none of it has been passed, directly on down. And I always admire going to church or whatnot and finding out that a great uncle or something other gave the land for this church or that church and was part of it. I mean, it's solid roots that you can count on. It's not somebody that's here today and gone tomorrow. And in farming, I mean, you got to take it through the good days and the bad days, and you can't get disgusted and say, well, ain't no use. So don't look like this weather's gonna ever let up. I want to just quit. But whenever you quit, you've done lost, and you learn to work with the elements that are at hand, whether it's dry or wet. You have means of providing water or shade or whatever's needed for a small garden. And even if you're a commercial farmer, you have ways and means of taking advantage of the elements if you know ahead of time what weather's predicted for, say September, October. Most vegetables don't require a lot of water to just grow, but they require the water whenever it comes harvest time, and you gotta have it there. And I'd always try to plant where that I'd have beans coming in October. The dry weather was good for them. You got better quality, but you didn't have rotten tips and stuff like that was against you. And it's taken time to study agriculture day in and day out to know what will work and what won't work. And I've watched it over the years. There's so many people that are greedy if they make a little money one year, why they want to next year plant twice as much, and then there's no market for it, and they're lucky to get their money back. And there's just a lot of difference. Anybody have a question that they would like to ask me?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just planted a garden last week and planted, some miscellaneous vegetables all from seeds, and I watered every night and so forth, and nothing's really sprouted yet. Should I be concerned?
You planted it last week, and it's
I planted mostly last Thursday. I planted the plants that will grow above the ground, and then on Sunday I planted the plants that will grow below the ground because of the moon, and I, watered every night, but nothing's really come up yet. Should I be concerned that I didn't do it properly?
well, one thing, you're giving it too much water. All the water that you need is enough to swell a seed and let it come from there. If you put too much water in its there, well, your seed will mold, swell, and rot, and it won't come up.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know the sign right off, but if you're on a Cancer Scorpio species, that's your three best signs, and you should be able to get plants from it. Now, you can plant on other signs, and stuff may come up and look good, but it don't produce. Gemini, Leo, and Virgo, they're a barren sign.
Hold the microphone up a little bit.
And they produce a lot of vegetation. Now that's a sign if you're doing it for a hedge or something other, that's good, but it's not good for green beans or anything that you don't want a lot of extra vine. because you only get a bean between each joint. If you put fertilizer and whatnot toward it, that you run the joints 8-10 inches apart, you'll have a lot of vine and no bean. And you know the genetic traits such as half runner beans, they normally grow low. You need to plant them on a high sign, and they'll be up off the ground a little bit to where the beans won't be touching the ground and rot. There'll be a lot of beans, but they'll be to throw away. And most all things that grow under the ground, you plant them whenever the moons are decreasing. All that's above, you plant it whenever the moons are increasing. And the zucchini squash and yellow squash and whatnot, they'll grow as much in 2 days as they will 3 days whenever the sign is in a fruitful sign. And it's just amazing. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you heard old timers talk about how much their babies are jumping and whatnot. And it's whenever the moons are growing, and vegetables are a lot the same way. They're very active in the growth of the moon. And a lot of people don't ever pay attention to it, but there's a lot of difference in it. Same way with a plant. You can take a plant, a tomato plant, and it needs pruning. You can prune that tomato, and you can take those prune suckers that you've taken off of the tomatoes and set them out, and they're just like setting out a new tomato plant. They'll take root and go right to growing, but if you do it on a barren sun, they'll just dry up because they'll starve to death for water.
Darren, I know you brought these gardening calendars, and you believe very much in how this works, so I'm wondering if you can explain to us a little bit more. Where are we? April, almost the end of April here. As Theron talks, you know, I hear things like, oh, yeah, like last year we had hundreds of tomato plants and 11 tomatoes. I mean, not quite that bad, but obviously we planted at a time that increased the growth of the plant, but not the making of tomatoes, which was kind of the whole point. So he told me about this, plums, and we've got a bunch in here for you to look at, but they go into, like today is April 30th, and it's Aquarius. It says, go out and weed.
Is that the same?
Feel free, we have a whole garden out there. But I wonder if you could talk a little more about preparing the garden and when to plant. I mean, I hear everything I hear, like prune your tomato plants. I've never pruned a tomato plant in my life. You need to go into that.
And is a sucker at the bottom of the plant, or is that the little?
It comes off out at the joints of the tomatoes coming up. Now, if you look, there'll be some of them that is a hand that's going to produce tomato, but there'll also be a new vine coming off. But there's enough of these here that I think it can spread them out to where that you can use them.
Aaron, can I ask you that instead of starting with April, can you start at the end of growing season? What do you do to prepare the soil from the end of the growing season to now, the beginning of the growing season? What steps do you take to get to today? What we should be doing?
Well, in preparing your soil, one of the major things is go by the county office and get you some soil sample boxes, and they can get you soil samples in different areas where that you're gonna be planting, and it'll tell you what do you need: lime, zinc, sulfur, and all of that. Most fertilizers come with your main three ingredients, but all of the other nutrients are very important. They're the ones that gives the slick finish on vegetables and whatnot. If you gotta have nitrogen, that's the one that gives you the growth of your plant. Phosphate is one that gives you the fruit, and potash is one that sets the fruit and determines a lot of how much that is produced. In these almanacs, if you look, it tells ever so often destroy weeds or cultivate or whatnot. That's a barren sign, and that's one of the best signs to work in your garden to keep down undesirable weeds and pests and whatnot. And you're not destroying your root system and all.
So Theron, when you have your soil tested and it comes back and it says deficient in calcium or really low in calcium, and it's springtime and you're maybe 2 weeks away from planting, can you put fertilizer in the soil directly before you plant? Should it sort of cook in there for a while?
Well, there's different ways of getting lime to go on your ground. The cheapest way is getting just a gray lime that these big trucks bring out and spread. But agriculture dehydrated lime is most efficient, and it works quick. A lot of your fertilizers, it has a lime base to it, and it works good on whatever you got. But if you got a fertilizer that's just a plain blend of your three nutrients, they're not getting the lime and whatnot that it takes to break down those other elements.
Can you plant immediately after you've put fertilizer in the soil?
Yeah.
Or it's all right?
Yeah.
A day or two won't burn the plants or anything like that?
Yeah, it won't normally burn them.
Are there things you can plant over winter that would help to raise the mineral levels, the levels of the soil?
if fall of the year is a good time to apply lime and find out, what's really needed, because it's a lot easier to put it there with a big truck than it is to have to try to put it there by hand or something like that. And I know we're talking a lot of gardening and whatnot. A raised bed, the greatest thing in a raised bed is for the fact that it's small, it's economical, it's there at your hands, and you can work it with no problem. You get a half-acre garden that you got handwork all the time, and it just keeps you tied up. Whereas a small raised bed, and you can go out there and keep up with it. And one of the worst things is getting behind and trying to cultivate or take care of agriculture crop. For you can have a crop that you've cultivated, and you can cultivate it and it a little bit damp on a fruitful sign, and go back the next day and it looks like you just moved the weeds over, you didn't kill any of them. But if you cultivate it on a barren sign, they'll be laying there drying up. And it's just amazing. But it's one of those things you watch and pay attention to get the benefit of it. Yes.
What about wood ash during the winter time? Put on your garden
Yeah.
in the winter,
Yeah, it's
where would that benefit as far as acidity or lime in the garden?
yeah, it's very good for the soil and whatnot. And acid and whatnot is what years ago people used to have to go on their gardens. They bought acid, and it would work in making their stuff grow.
Darren, if the plants are using up nutrients in the soil during the growing season, does that mean that you really should test your soil every year, every fall or every spring, to see what's going on for the next growing season?
Well, that's the way most people would find out what is needed, but somebody that works it day in and day out, they can tell by looking whether a plant is being fed well by the nutrients that are there, or is it short on what nutrients it's getting.
So would I need to be giving since we have raised beds, would I need to be giving the beds that are growing beans a different kind of fertilizer for that soil for the next year than, say, the beds where I'm growing the tomatoes? Or would they all pretty much be at the same level of?
Well, you're growing your bed for the fruit or the vegetable that you want. It's not very important of how big your leaves and whatnot are. You don't eat them. It's but your leaves do help feed the plant, and you need to look at what that you're gonna be harvesting from it. If you're harvesting tomatoes or green beans, as long as they're good, mature, it's getting what they want. But if you see tomatoes that have got brown spots at the blossom end, this is a sign of low calcium. And if you catch it real early in the bloom, why, you can give it a tum and bring it out. A tum. Because of the quick,
Calcium powder,
uh,
right? Any calcium powder?
yeah. But it's quick acting calcium because your soil is short on calcium lime, but you can give it sweet milk or Tums, different things like that that will bring tomatoes out.
If you put milk on, do you water it down?
Not really.
I'd have every environment
Really?
around.
Just pour milk on the
Oh, that's what, I heard you say sweet milk.
Yeah.
You know. I have people tell me powdered milk.
Well, that's a cheaper method, but
That's sweet milk.
yeah,
Straight from the cow's the best way.
yeah.
So someone told me last winter to put ryegrass down in the beds, and overwinter. So I put all this ryegrass on, unfortunately for me, I think, on the asparagus bed. Now I got all this grass on the asparagus bed, and I'm afraid the asparagus can't get up through all the ryegrass. So that was like a big mistake, right?
Well, the ryegrass is a good cover crop to hold your soil and keep intact all of your elements and things like that in your soil.
But it's probably better more for a field than
Yeah.
for a raised bed.
Yeah.
You were planting cereal rye, right?
What?
Cereal rye, not
Yeah.
ryegrass, but cereal rye.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Tell you about that. The difference between ryegrass and cereal rye.
Quite a bit. Whenever you get into different grasses and whatnot, it's amazing how many that there are. It's just like apples. People think, well, they're red and some yellow, but they don't realize that there's over 6,000 different varieties of apples. And a lot of them has come from maybe the same rootstock, but it's been grown on another tree that gives it different texture, shape, and whatnot.
Are there cover crops that you recommend for raised beds?
I'd say things that you enjoy to eat, such as yellow squash, cucumbers, tomatoes, beans, tomatoes and things that don't take up a lot of space, but that you got it there whenever you need it. And one thing in whatever you plant, you need to look at spacing and whatnot. Corn, if you're putting corn in a raised bed and you got your rows or whatnot, 4 inches is close to you want to have a grain of corn planted to another one. But if you get it to where that they don't get no light, it's not going to produce anything. For a plant, it's got to have air, soil, light, and water, or it will not, produce. It may produce a vine, but the beans will look immature. They'll not be a bean that you'd be proud of to take in the kitchen and break to go in a pot.
What do you do to keep the crows from eating all your corn?
Don't let them see you plant.
Well, they're sort of protected, and they're not a whole lot that I can public speak about.
Turn off the mic and tell us the secret.
But
See him during break, he'll tell you. See him doing a break,
and then you
have a
can
break,
just
he'll tell you.
thumbs up or thumbs down.
and now,
They generally hand it down in the field. That's what the farmers I've know down where I live do.
but you can use a little bit of kerosene on your seed corn, and the crows won't bother it then.
Are they eating your fully developed heads of corn or after your seed? Who asked the question?
Yeah, I did.
Are they after your seeds or the fully developed corn?
Well, the seeds mainly, like after the plant.
Yeah.
Will
But-
that help with squirrels eating seeds too? If you put kerosene on it?
Squirrels ain't gonna bother it with that on it.
Darren, I'm growing a bunch of things on my dining room table under lights. And in the last week or two, a lot of them have, right at the soil, top of the soil level, they've like pinched off and dried up, and the plants died. Had a sprout a couple of inches high and was just doing great a couple of days ago. Did I?
When did you plant?
Hmm?
When did they?
See, I didn't consider that really planting because it was, lasagna pan on my table as opposed to outside. But I guess, is that what happens when you plant in the wrong time? That they,
A lot of things that happen whenever you plant from the wrong sign.
so can I fix that by planting them in the raised beds in the right time?
Yeah.
Or is it just totally, that can
Yeah.
help?
If you're looking planted in one of the three popular signs, it should come up and do good. And
There
that,
is these wonderful ideas like the Thomas thing. So, but you gotta ask the question to get that kind of answer. And when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, I asked him about voles. And I would love it if you would give the class your answer to me about voles.
well, voles love juicy fruit chewing gum, but you got to find where to trench it in and unwrap a stick of juicy fruit chewing gum and slide it down in the hole where they're at, and they'll come along and eat it, and it'll block them up and they'll soon be gone.
We have 2 cats.
Right. Well, you know what I do?
They
I
take
pour,
care of them. They do. They really
I
do.
pour spent kitty litter, soiled kitty litter down the hole.
Does that work?
Not really.
So, a little bit. Really, I found with voles, they just reproduce and keep coming back, but.
Yeah,
But I have found that pouring kitty litter down the holes will hold them off for a little while.
yeah.
It smells like the million cat
get used, and it should be a natural product. A lot of them have lots of stuff in it, but I use a natural fluid, so it just turns into clay, you know. But so it has to be an unchewed Wrigley's, or,
No. Well, yeah, it's unchewed is better because
okay, because then
odor and whatnot.
I was thinking that when I read that the peppermint repelled them, because I have a product that is granules, it has castor oil and peppermint and other stuff in it that you're supposed to broadcast and they kind of advance through the field where they are. And the peppermint messes up their sense of smell, and they don't like that.
Right.
That's what I've heard. I'm gonna try to read this stuff.
Yeah.
But Darren said you gotta wear gloves.
Is it,
Because they'll smell you on it.
Scent on the gun,
Oh.
they won't eat it, so you gotta wear gloves.
I had somebody tell me, this was at the organic conference up in Asheville, I said, how do I get rid of voles? And they said, put the high salt fertilizer out. And I thought, well, I don't really want to do that. The salt will kill the grubs and the earthworms.
Right.
It basically makes your soil dead, and the voles go somewhere else.
Great.
But I want all that microbial activity. Yeah. But it works.
is it necessary or, to soak your okra seed before you plant them? And do you use water or milk or what before you, plant?
If you're ready to go and got your okra seed ready, soak it in the Clorox.
Chloride.
Yeah, because it'll swell and it also creates heat in the meantime. And do it in the sides and the thighs in May, and you'll have okra for long to eat.
So undiluted Clorox?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pure chloride.
For overnight or something?
yeah, yeah.
And you said plant the okra in May? Plant the okra seeds in May?
During the.
Yeah.
Is there anything that keeps squirrels out of your garden?
Not really.
There you have it. Coexist. Yeah, until the population gets too big.
Even our cats don't even work on our squirrels. They just sit there.
What about rabbits?
Natural predators.
Yeah, you might know rabbits. Yeah, I love my black snakes and hawks and owls.
They gonna come one way or the other and try to figure out how to be good to them and they'll be good to you.
I've heard castor oil plants,
Yeah,
planted around the perimeter,
yeah.
but then they're poisonous.
How about
Castor oil or castor bean?
Castor
I don't know
bean.
if the leaf is poisonous to the fruit, the bean.
You talking about the purpose?
I don't know, it's just
Yeah,
plant castor.
yeah.
Or bean plants.
It's pretty growing in the garden, but you see a good bit of it grown in different gardens.
Yeah, they don't like the smell. That's what I've heard.
Could you talk a little bit about what kind of support systems are best for beans and for tomatoes? And I don't know if there's anything else you need a support system for, but I've tried a bunch of different things for tomatoes and I can't figure out, they all seem to be equally
You talking
pain
about
in the neck.
staking?
Well, I've tried those
Cages.
cages and I've tried the long things and last year we just did wires. And, I mean, they're all kind of a pain in the neck and I'm thinking that I should be spending more time getting rid of some of the branches than tying them up. I don't know.
Well, you got to have a good system to hold up your beans or tomatoes, and we normally use wire and good sized stake and tighten it up, and then run each tomato up a string or a wire that the other wires support that tomato. But if you got beans and you're letting them just grow at will, you'll wind up with more beans than your wire will support, and you're a lot better off if you'll sort of prune them a little bit, take some of the growth off of them.
Just prune the leader.
Yeah.
Can you do that with tomatoes too?
With what?
With a tomato plant, can you
Yeah.
top it and it'll bush out more,
Yeah.
and then determine?
Well, you don't really want so much a tomato plant to bunch out in the top, because the more weight that you wind up in top or on a row, the more likely it is to fall over because of the weight. You got to grow it to where weight is distributed up and down the vine, and in tomato, if you look at it and prune a tomato where you're taking off excess vine growth and you're not taking off the hands or fingers that your tomatoes grow on, you want to leave them, because you'll always get bigger and better tomatoes on the second and third hand of tomatoes than you will any of them. For your first hand of tomatoes, most time they'll be little, and they just don't get the size and all to them that the second hand does.
So you're saying second wind? Second hand? What do you call
Hand,
it? Hand?
yeah.
And fingers.
Off the plant? Got it, okay.
So would the second and third hand be coming from the bottom or coming
Yeah.
from the top, from the bottom?
From the bottom,
Okay. So prune the first hand.
yeah. Now, you large tomato farmers, if you go by and you see a tomato field and them are working that tomato field, the middle may be green with where that they've pinched suckers off of them, because there are more suckers than they want on the plant, and they won't get the size of tomatoes that they want. For there's no profit in growing little small tomatoes. You got to have a good slice of tomato.
Karen, how long does it take when you send a soil sample in to get the information back?
Fall of the year, it's a lot quicker than it is at other times. It depends on the backlog that they have on hand. But normally it's not too long,
Like 2 weeks or something?
yeah.
And could you talk a little bit about the location of the garden? You know, we talked a little before about how the beds should run, or maybe, if, you know, the level or issue, or some of that stuff.
Well, the location of a garden want everything in the garden to be seen and to get light. And if you wind up and you plant your tall stuff, that it gets the first sunlight. Your snap beans and things like that that are low, they not gonna get the light and all that they need, and it's not gonna be good. But plant to where that you can realize that all of your plants are getting equal portions of sun.
Is there a difference between like the ones that get early morning sun, get the first sun like the first 2 hours, and then some of the beds that we have here get a lot of long afternoon sun? Should I be planting something specific in those because of the time of day that they get more sun, or?
Well, early morning sun is the better sun because it's fresh and it's got due to it that it don't pick up a lot of the diseases from that plant, because as that plant dries, it picks up diseases and transfer them to other plants through the air, just by them being dry. But whenever a disease is wet, the sun don't pick it up near like it does whenever it's dry. And I know I'd have a lot of problems with brown smut on beans, and it was caused by traffic and not dusting the way that it should. And I've had fields that you could tell exactly where that the wind was coming across the field from the road or whatnot that carries all of the pollen and whatnot from that field that's infected.
Do you believe in rotating crops?
Yeah.
And how do you rotate them? I mean, if you have a soil sample that tells you who's more acidic soil, and then you rotate them, you have to rotate an acidic soil loving plant to that one, that space?
Well, most time in rotating vegetables, it's knowing what that you're working with. I never did like to plant beans year after year in the same spot. I'd always come back with corn or squash or something like that didn't take a lot of the elements out.
The beans, fix nitrate in the soil, right?
Yeah.
So, or squash has nitrate here?
No.
No. So you got all that nitrate sitting in the soil. I was just wondering if there's a heavy nitrate feeding vegetable that would do well in a plot where beans had been planted the year before. If you ever even thought about that, or if that's what you're thinking about.
Well, yellow squash, they don't require a lot of nitrogen. If you get any nitrogen much, they'll turn green, and they won't really be good. I mean, they all right to eat, but you can't sell them.
So when you plant beans, they don't fix enough nitrogen in the soil that
No.
it creates a problem for another plant.
No.
That doesn't want much. Okay.
Eric, you talk about the plants that ate each other and those that are antagonistic to each other. What plants, what growing vegetables, which plants are great to grow together and which should be avoided?
Used to, most all people put marigolds in their garden.
When they used to be real marigolds.
Right.
Good point.
And they used a lot of other herbs and whatnot, more for grow it in the garden and the effect that it would have on other plants and whatnot. I know my grandmother used to always grow sage, and she had 2 or 3 different spots of sage alone, and about the only time I'd ever see her pick any of that sage would be in the fall of the year whenever you'd kill hogs, and you'd need some of that sage to mix into your seasoning to help spice your sausage up. And a lot of them, they believe in taking hot pepper and keeping hot pepper on the end, especially red pepper. It was good for cooking, but it also was good for warding colds off. You'd go to some of these old houses and whatnot, and they'd have so much red pepper hanging up till it'd burn your eyes, but you wouldn't have a cold.
A cold, like a cold?
Yeah.
Wow.
And why did she plant sage? That helped do something. I didn't hear what you said about sage, grandmother.
It was used in the sausage whenever you kill a hog in the fall of the year. And used to, they mixed their own mixture of black pepper, sage, red pepper, and different things like that that they seasoned their meat with.
But in the garden, sage is a beneficial plant. It'll help other plants grow.
Yeah,
I've always heard basil and tomatoes go well.
right.
Are there any plants that don't like each other, that do not grow next to each other?
Not that I'm aware of.
What is it about blueberry bushes that, I've been told that where we live, we have 2 blueberry bushes, but they have to be compatible with each other in order to produce the blueberries. Is that correct? And how would you know if they're compatible or not?
I know that's what that they recommend, but I've never been a great producer of blueberries.
Because I have 2 blueberry bushes I haven't planted yet that I bought at Lowe's, and I don't know if they're gonna like each other or if they're not gonna get along. How would you know? How would you know how that works? How can you tell if they're male or female? Just take your chances.
You know, every year Cooperative Extension usually sells fruiting plants. They do that in Polk County. The Cooperative Extension Service often sells the strawberries and blueberry plants that do well in your area. I know we have a sale down in Polk County. I'm wondering if here, does Cooperative Extension sell the blueberry and strawberry plants?
Yeah,
They've done trials of them usually at the Boston Arboretum or up at the research station in Fletcher, not Fletcher. Yeah, the Mountain Horticulture Research ones do well in this area.
That's usually in April that they have their sale though.
Yeah,
It's in April, so it's already gone this year.
yeah, but you could be in touch with them if you're, the ones you bought right now don't do well.
I guess the fact that I have two that are already producing blueberries, I mean, they did last year, just plant the new ones near them and just hope for the best.
Good time.
Good time, yeah.
Why don't we take a short break? The W on the door is, well, I guess I shouldn't direct people with bathrooms anymore. Whatever you want to do. There's a W on that door, and there's an M on that door, and whatever. It's for women and men. And I'm about to get some bowls because Theron's lovely wife Mary has made a fresh strawberry cobbler that I thought we wanted to give to you before the next session. So we'll take a short break and get your questions ready, and we'll be back in like 10 minutes.
The signs, they're sort of like the multiplication table. You got 1 through 12, and some are very small, some are large, but you got to know whenever the cycle's coming around. For you have 3 signs that are very fruitful, and 2 of them come and the moon when it's growing. 1 of them comes whenever the moons are decreasing, and we got one here that's showing the species. That's a root crop there, and that's whenever you plant it. Well, then you got Cancer, and this is your most favorable sign. And sorry about that. This is your first sign as Cancer, and
Here you go. Bring it into there.
Make it a little lavalier. Put it in his pocket. Put it in his pocket.
Oh, well, that's
Or maybe just.
Yeah, we need to give you one of these rock star mics.
Very good.
right. But
Perfect.
Cancer, you got 2 days there that are very good. It says plant above ground crops, plant flowers, seed bed, apply chemical fertilizer, and then the root crop, it's prune to encourage growth, apply organic fertilizer. And there's different times that you can apply fertilizer and get better results from it. Then you got Scorpio, and this is the time to plant root crops, transplant, seed bed, prune to encourage growth, apply organic fertilizer, and this is on full moon, and it's 2 days of it. It's also plant root crops, transplant, seed beds, prune to encourage growth, and apply organic fertilizer. And it all works And cutting orange potato, if you cut it on a fruitful sign, it'll turn black and rot. You cut it on a light sign, it'll turn white and dry down. But you always plant an orange potato on dark nights, but you harvest them on light nights. And there's a lot of difference to it. The potato don't seem to draw the moisture on a light night as it will on a dark night.
Darren, people have been talking about already planting, and I know you don't plant till after Mother's Day, is that right?
Ordinarily.
Ordinarily.
But we had something happen this year that we've never had since I've been farming. We grew several potatoes last year, and it was wet, and there wasn't no market for them. And Tyrone, I said, well, let's go over and dig you some. So he went over and started digging, and he dug 26 bags, and I took them to Asheville, or Mary Lois did, and they couldn't believe it. And said, oh, bring me some more. Well, we took them 56 bushel back, and there's still potatoes up there. Unreal, but it was not a real hard winter. But Tyrone had wound up and held the potatoes up good, keeping them from sunburning or whatnot, and then they kept good right there all winter long.
Do you want to tell them about the turnip?
I had a turnip, and we should have brought the picture of that. It weighed 16 pounds, and it fed about 40 people. We ate a bunch of it here, and then I sent a quarter of it to Winston-Salem and some friends down there. They eat on it, but that turnip was firm, no pethiness and nothing to it. Just amazing, but it 16 pounds. And 99 we had beets that went to the state fair, and they is 6 pounds a piece.
About this big.
Whatever, how big 6 pounds is.
So there's hope for us.
But in growing large stuff, you don't grow it by how much you feed it. Size is how much it's something other is loved and taken care of. Whenever you give something what that it's needed, you'll come a lot nearer getting growth out of it than you will if you try to force it to grow. Most times, you try to force a plant to grow, and you'll kill it or damage it, and it just won't grow. But just putting stuff out, giving what it needs, and leave it alone. Go by and knock a few weeds down or something other. But always remember, whenever you're around the plant, take care of that you don't see. That's where the root system's at and the feed source coming to that plant. It's very important that you don't disturb food source going to any plant.
What do you mean when you say that, don't disturb the food source?
Years ago, people had basically two types of cultivators that they cultivated with. They had one that was either a 4 or 5 shank cultivator, and they would run that cultivator up the row, and the front foot next to your plant would be just skipping the ground a little bit, whereas the back foot would be going fairly deep. It was breaking the middle up. That would cause moisture come up. Well, if you needed to come back later and plow, you'd use a sweep. It was just one big plow, and you picked up the loose dirt and slid the dirt up in under the plant. That you didn't bother any roots at all. And it protected the water that was there and the water that come. Grandpa always said what would hold water would turn water, and he pretty well knew what he was talking about.
And there's a difference when you plant, you talked about mounding the potatoes and mounding, planting squash in a mound, making a mound for the tomatoes. Why do you do that? Why don't you just stick it in the flat ground? Why do you mound soil up around it?
Well, you're not letting the plant sit right on top of the ground for wind or whatnot to blow that plant and to break it. It's by putting dirt around it, it stabilizes it. And corn especially, it's going to put out sucker roots, brace roots and whatnot, that it's going to stand much better with those. And it's taking care of the plant. Bunch beans, they'll shoot out some sucker runners. A lot of them you don't see, but it helps them to stand up. And they help support the plant, and it'll just bear a lot more beans.
And so that also means then that the water is going to be in the trench part and not right next to the plant.
Right.
And that's better.
Yeah.
I have a question about supplemental watering. You said earlier that vegetables will grow when it's dry, and that watering before harvest has a big impact.
Yeah.
I know we're probably gonna have a hot, dry summer again. We're already going into early drought now. Do you have any guidelines for, particularly with raised beds? I think a lot of us probably have raised beds. For monitoring plants, and when you do need to water them, is it best to do soaker hoses, overhead watering, or?
Well,
You can overwater, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And you can do it at the wrong time that you'll have a big impact against the plant. A plant is not particularly in need of water because you're seeing it wilt. It's showing signs of wilt because of the temperature as a whole. And if you'll come back and apply warm water or whatnot to that plant, it'll take it up and it'll come back to life. If you put cold spigot water on a plant, it does more harm than good, because you be hot and thirsty and whatnot and go in and grab you a cup of ice water, you feel a lot worse than you do if you get you a cup of this regular water and drink it.
So when you say warm, you mean like room temperature?
Yeah,
Tepid?
yeah. And that's why there's a lot of people that's got these barrels that they kick water inside their house and whatnot. And rainwater is actually better for your gardens than other, because it's got a lot of stuff in it that's been brought out of the air and whatnot.
You know, I used to work at the Arboretum, and all the horticulturists there used to say that the ions were released after a storm.
Right.
And that's why they look so vibrant and green after a storm. I mean, the air is actually charged
Yeah.
with ions that the plants are benefiting from in addition to the water.
Yeah. For Rainbow Fertilizer Company gave an experiment a few years back of how much each fertilizer ingredient was used, and I won't never forget that it takes 39 pounds of sulfur per acre to grow good beans. Well, with using 10-10 fertilizer with your minor elements, you was getting a bigger portion of that fertilizer through that 10-10, whereas if you was using a non-fertilizer, you wouldn't be getting none of it. It's always very important to have your minor elements, because they're the ones that always puts the finishing touch on your vegetables or whatnot. It makes a world of difference.
And rainwater has all that?
Yeah.
Any particular time that's better than another for watering?
Real early or real late, and don't do it in the middle of the day.
And is it better to, as you were saying, to sort of drip irrigate or just do the soil rather than have those sprayer things to get the leaves?
Not necessarily.
So the leaves need some moisture also.
Yeah. But about all your leaves will take up so much moisture through what water's put on the ground or whatnot. Whether you putting water on them or not, they'll take it up on their own.
Is well water as good as rainwater? No.
Because if I was going to use it, I would wind up and run it and let it set a while, and then use it rather than.
So run it, let it sit, and then put it out. Well water?
Yeah, it's better that way for its more natural temperature.
Right.
Yeah. I guess temperature is probably 58, something like that on your well water.
Yeah.
What about spring water?
spring water's extremely cold too.
So how often should you water? You say, things really prefer to be dry.
Well, there's not really a pattern that you can give to that. You don't ever really want your garden to depend on you totally for water, because you want it to make do with what water that it's getting, and the root system and whatnot, you get it for. I'm sure all agencies saw welfare recipients, and have you ever saw any of them that got enough welfare to satisfy them? They just don't get it. And you can feed honeybees and they'll get so they won't work. Or you can put the water there all the time in your garden. Well, make it take advantage of the waters at hand and not the availability of the good water.
What about mulching? Putting something around the base of the plant to retain moisture.
It's very good. Mulching is very good.
Is there any mulch that you like in particular?
Ever how that you preserve moisture for that plant as a whole. And this is where that if you got your rows run north and south, they don't need near the moisture as they do east and west, because you gotta look at how the sun is gonna come and beam on your garden or whatever. It just makes a lot of difference.
Do you use newspaper or old craft paper grocery bags, or cut grass, or pine needles, or?
Them are all good. I don't really do it. I might, in time to come, if I keep getting disabled, for my health has changed tremendously in the last 5 years, especially in the last 6 months. Agent Orange has took a toll on me rather than heavy, but I ain't gonna give up.
The mulching is extra work, that's for sure.
You know,
Is newspaper any good? Somebody told me to put a newspaper up, I thought about all
oh
that.
yeah. Anything to cover the ground, to protect it and to hold your moisture is good for your plant.
I used to think I was real smart. I would go to these rich neighborhoods and collect their big plastic bags of grass clippings, and use them. But then I thought, well, they've got all those chemicals in their grass. Do you think that would be? And so I stopped because I didn't want to have the residual chemicals from their grass clippings. But do you think that it would be okay anyhow, or do you have any opinion?
Well, that grass is growed on manufactured fertilizer.
Right.
And
Pesticide also, just all kinds of chemicals in it.
yeah. And anytime that an organic compost pile is going through a recycling process. Whatever's been fed to it is what you're gonna get back out of it.
Right.
So it is knowing what and how to deal with what that you're getting. I never had to really give much thought to it, but years ago we used to clean out the horse stable and the cow stable and all that, and put it out on the field. And there's a guy, he says, put your fertilizer on your fields, put all that manure on your pasture. He says, you ain't got all them weeds to contend with. And it made a big difference because the cows and all, they eat whatever weed seed they got. And there, whenever we was hauling that manure, we was hauling it out, putting it on the fields, and then they turn around and fight weeds in.
Particularly horse manure.
What was that?
Horse manure has,
Oh, yeah,
is scrapped a good bit.
yeah.
I use a lot of pine straw because it's free.
Yeah,
I just go rake it up, put it on the tarp, and drag it back to my garden. But then I put wood ash in the wintertime to offset the acid.
Goats have an extra couple stomachs, they digest all the seeds, so that
Goats?
works pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. And sometimes I go get goat manure across Sandburg when they have some.
Are pine needles acidic? Pine needles are acidic, right?
yeah.
Okay. But the soil needs that, like the wood ash.
You know, I never have tested my soil, but I just know that we put our beds in on top of what used to be the mountain laurel patch, which does well in acidic soil, so I just assumed the soil was acidic. And then I add pine straw to it, and so it's very unscientific, and I put the wood ash on. I kind of hope it
A
balances
pinch of
out.
this and a pinch of that.
A little bit of this, pinch of that.
Yeah.
Crazy question. You ever heard of anyone digging up wild onions out of their yard and trying to plant those?
I've eat a lot of salad made from wild onion.
Well, when they're in my yard, they're in a big clump,
Right.
so they don't have room to grow. I just had the idea I was gonna dig some up and spread them out and just see how they did.
Well, you just adding work unnecessarily. Because wild onions are very hard to get rid of, but they are very good in a salad at the right time. I thought I'd be smart one time, and I was fixing some poke salad and run out of ramp, so I just added wild onions to it, and they didn't know the difference. Yeah, but they all come in along at the same time of the season, and it's good if it's used in moderation to somebody that knows how to use it or whatnot. A lot of people don't rely on things of nature for a meal, whereas years ago people had always looked for creasy greens to come. That's the first green that come in the spring of the year, and then poke salad it would come, and it was always a tradition to have these at certain times. We got a Keps reunion that I've been going to for 30 years, and they always look forward to me bringing poke salad to the Keps reunion. That's a lot of time and work to fix a dish of it, but I enjoy it. Enjoy telling people what and how and time and all involved in it. But they just ain't nobody that's picks up a lot on old traditions that keeping it alive. Just depend on somebody else, you know.
Is pokeweed up now?
Yeah,
It is up now.
yeah.
And so it's green. You just pick it and boil it or eat it raw? Or?
No. You eat it raw, it's poison. You don't marry those to fix something for next week.
What does it look like? I don't even know what it looks like. What does it look like when it comes up?
Well, it's a tall plant, but normally you pick it whenever it's less than a foot tall, and boil it down, and you season it with eggs and whatnot. My kids all love it. Seldom he'll eat it for breakfast.
You ever eat dandelion leaves?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause my dad used to eat them all the time, and, you know, we've got so many dandelions everywhere.
Dandelion tea's good too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, someone told me that you should pick the leaves before the blossom comes up, but that's when they're best.
On a
Or
dandelion.
flowers. Dandelion.
Yeah.
We have a couple of resources here I know that you brought that you wanted to let people know about. The Mavens, I think, will be selling these if you all want them, or you can write down where to get these. This is one of the Bibles that he uses, aside from the real one. And home vegetable gardening from NC State, that looks like a good thing. Boy, for somebody who just got a computer, you guys have gotten into this really quickly.
I took a course at Blue Ridge.
And next week we're doing planting, so we might actually even plant some things out in the garden, just so that we can learn about the planting part and the structure part. I know that we're gonna be a wonderful example, because we probably will do it all wrong, and that way you'll learn more about how to do it the right way.
I have another question, because I grew up in East Tennessee where moonshine was everywhere, and the farmers would take the mash and put it in the garden. Is that an old method from?
Well, most people used to mash to grow their hogs on, but still, they would add their ways of recycling it. And
I'm sure they fed it to their hogs too, but some of it made its way into the garden.
yeah. What part of Tennessee was it?
Kingsport, outside
Okay.
Kingsport.
I got a high school friend that was president of Eastman Kodak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's one in Elizabethtown, Tennessee, I was in service with. He lives on Gap Creek Road. And it's a pleasure to keep up with him. Any other questions?
Going back to planting the seeds, when she was asking, say she's been watering every day and might be too much water and may have killed it. When you plant the seeds, should you just water once and that's it? Okay.
Yeah. Because if you saturating you ground and whatnot, you could cause your plant to rot.
I'm just looking, I know you, Mrs. Maven said that there were some handouts, so go ahead
Yeah.
and hand these out.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. That wonderful cobbler you ate, by the way, is
That was delicious.
Oh, I know.
very
But my big takeaway is don't water so much. I can relax about it.
Tons of quick calcium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes, yeah.
but a lot of this stuff comes from the extension service there in town. I've been in and out there all my life, really. We'll soon be losing county extension agent there, Marvin Owens, and he'll be replaced. But
He's a good apple man.
yeah, he's been an excellent resource for apples and vegetables, and
Is he retiring?
yeah.
Where do you get the soil sample, testing things?
You can get them there, or I can pick up some and have them here next week.
I'm pretty sure I've seen them at the co-op to pick up.
Haven't they bring something out next week? It sure be nice.
And there's sometimes in the year when you wait a while.
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
when everyone's over.
The best time to do it's like when you're not planning.
Well, next week, we're going to be discussing planting, so bring your questions specifically about planting. And as I said, we may go out into the garden and have Erin actually plant a few things so we can get a sense of how it's really done. I mean, I'm just watching it done right, really,
So wear your boots and not your sandals.
really does. So,
May I make a comment before everybody breaks up? I came in the other way, this driveway goes all the way around. I suggest that when you leave, you go down that way, go past the pond and past the house, and you'll see some beautiful azaleas down there.
We have
Whatever
to pie
else.
party, somebody will have to go for them.
Pardon?
We need a pie podcast. Just go.
yeah, really.
Have you noticed any difficulty or problems with pollinating lately? And have you had to assist your plants with pollinating?
No. Red Delicious apple is probably the one that has got to have bee pollination, whereas a lot of other apples will wind or yellow jackets or bumblebees or whatnot. They'll get pollinated that way, but in a Red Delicious apple, if you don't get good pollination, you'll get a lopsided apple. That bee has to go all the way around the seed core in that apple to give a smooth apple.
I kind of blame my failures with squash sometimes with insufficient pollination. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yep. Well, squash is not a self-pollinator, and they grow rather fast and whatnot. And rain and different things can have an effect on you pollinating.
And pesticides. You get drift from somewhere or kill your pollinators. Your insect pollinators.
Any other question?
So what are we gonna plant next week?
Well, we'll see what we've got here, but, You wanna bring something to plant in the garden? Feel free.
Is it a planting day? We haven't looked on the calendar yet.
That's right.
Well, I don't know. Somebody look it up and see if next Saturday's a good day for planting. It's still a waning moon by next Saturday, probably, so.
So do you wait until Mother's Day to plant seed, or you don't even start the seed ahead of time?
Well, Mother's Day is a good time for a lot of things in mass production of field corn, green beans, and things like that, that you're pretty well out of the danger of frost by wait till the 10th of May to plant. I used to, I'd plant by 1st of April, but I found out that over a period of time, it come up and it spread out on top of the ground, and the weeds come up and they hid in under it. I'd worked myself to death trying to keep all them weeds hoed out, and I just wait till 1st of May or somewhere along there, and they wasn't near as much work in it then.
Because the weeds
Yeah.
have done their thing, and
Yeah.
or that particular weed.
Yeah.
Does soil temperature have anything to do with growing plants? Soil temperature?
Well, you're not gonna get much results out of a garden whenever you're trying to plant stuff in garden in a temperature below 55 degrees in your garden, and this is one benefactor of a raised bed. You got it up where that it's heat underneath and whatnot that you don't get on stuff that's planted directly in the fields and things like that. Yeah.
Is it beneficial to, say, like, get a crop of corn going and then maybe put some beans in there for them to travel up that corn, or are you just defeating your purpose? The beans drop from the corn, or how?
No, not really. What are you gonna do with the beans? That's one thing. I mean, if you're gonna harvest them, it's very good to have your corn to where the corn will be stable enough to hold it up. If you got corn like that right there, and you get any wind much with a vine on it, it's gonna blow it over. You want your corn spaced out 10 inches or whatnot, to where that corn will get a stiff stalk with borons in it. That's what stiffens the stalk and makes a lot of difference. I know used to, people would wind up and plant Hawkins prolific or hickory cane corn. They was a white corn, and they'd plant it like 12 to 15 inches apart. Well, the runners would wind up and grow and catch to it, and you could go out there and, I mean, you could just rake the beans off of that, and then it would still wind up and make good hard corn for bread or whatever.
Someone mentioned asparagus, and is it too late to plant that now, or is that something you plant before the winter? I think you mentioned asparagus or something.
Well, asparagus, you can plant it, but it's gonna be next year before you get anything from it, because it being a root. Same way with rhubarb, you get starts of rhubarb, but it won't produce nothing till next year.
So when would you plant asparagus, like in the fall, have it come up in the spring?
Well, most of it is planted in the spring, from where that it's come up where there's a bed at, and you transplant it out from it. I used to have a hayfield that had a lot of asparagus in it, and I'd take and cut bunches of it and transplant it here and yonder, and it worked pretty good. It's a root and whatnot, and I mean, you just gotta know how to work it.